Will interest rates ever go below 5% again? That's the question people keep on asking, but there's a better question. Do you want them to? Every time rates crash, housing prices explode, affordability dissipates, deals go away, and the rich get richer. Same thing as always. The people who actually win in a higher market rate are the middle class, but they're convinced that it's the opposite. And that's because they don't know about the secret weapon available to them that we're going to teach them today. Bill, as always, good to have you here.
Brandon, great to see you.
Bill, why do you think, and let's just answer the question, why do people want the interest rates to go below 5%? And do you think they will?
People want them to go below 5% because it'll make their mortgage payment lower and it'll allow them to, quote, be affordable in terms of what they can afford to spend on their house. Do I think they will go below 5%? Yes.
You do? That's fascinating. We haven't disagreed in quite some time. What makes you think it's going to go below 5%? And what's the timeline would you put it on?
So I'm going to put the timeline on within about a year and a half.
Okay.
And I'm going to say that from the interest rate standpoint on FHA, I think they will go below 5%. On conventional, it's going to be really, really difficult to go below 5%.
Why do you think it's harder for mortgage interest rates on conventional to dip down lower than FHA?
The conventional mortgage interest rates are they're different than the FHA. FHA is a HUD, basically the Housing and Urban Development. They are set by the government. Not necessarily the rates are set by the government, but they're lower so that people can afford more. They're about 0.5% lower than the conventional mortgage rates that are through Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. And so they're always a difference between an FHA, VA, and a conventional mortgage. What you hear in the news all the time is conventional mortgage rates.
Of course, that's what they want to
the standard.
Show,
that's where the most of the loans are done through conventional mortgages.
A little trick for people who are listening and watching this. When the news or social media or the people who run media want you to be afraid of the interest rates, they use conventional, which is the higher. When they want you to rush out and buy houses, they use FHA interest rates because they're lower. But they know that you, the audience, don't realize that there's a difference. But I do, right? When I turn on Fox 5 News and they're like, the interest rates are at 6.5%. I'm like, well, FHA is like 6%. Why don't you use that? You know, it's a clever little trick that they pull off.
They don't talk about that.
That's why our job is to keep educating you guys, right? FHA interest rates are lower than conventional ones for the reasons Bill just gave to you guys right there. So you said something interesting. People want lower interest rates because they think it'll make their mortgage more affordable. But on this show, over and over and over again, and we kind of did it during the opening segment, when interest rates go down, housing prices explode. You know, it's hard because we're in this industry, so we see the numbers, but it's hard for me to get over the average person what this looks like. So I drew up a perfect example. Okay, in Summerlin in 2020, this is going to be hard for a lot of you to believe, but in Summerlin in 2020, there were still houses going for $350,000 to $400,000. For the sake of educating my class, I went back to 2020 and I looked at every house that was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath that sold in Summerlin. There was $350,000, $400,000 houses.
Wow.
The rate was 3%. Okay? The rate was 3%. Now that the rate is 6%, those houses shot up to $500,000, right? And people don't want to believe that. They don't want to accept that houses aren't going to go up by like $10,000. They're going to go up by a significant amount, right? And we did houses in Summerlin. Again, I just did houses in Summerlin because that's the most prestigious part of Vegas. And I said, what do you think a $400,000 house at 6% cost versus a $500,000 house at 3%? And everybody's like, oh, I'm going to save $500 a month. I'm going to save $1,000 a month. I said, you're going to save $67 and you're going to pay an extra $100,000 for the house, right? So there's this myth. I like to use the word myth, right? There's this myth that interest rates go down and you save money on your mortgage. But no one ever talks about housing prices going up because mortgage interest rates go down. They never talk about that balancing act.
Well, at the end of the day, it's about how much money you're going to spend, right? And if you wait for your mortgage payment to go down because of lower interest rates, what ends up happening, and we've talked about it, your predictions over the years, values are going to continue to go up. You pay more for the house. And you're not going to save by paying more for the house, even though you pay a little bit less on the mortgage payment. It's not going to pencil.
No.
So for example, if you pay $20,000 more for the house to save $100 on your mortgage payment, that's a big difference in like, and then you're going to pay more interest over the time period of the loan.
And that's,
you're just paying more.
Please explain that to people, right? Because again, a lot of people are so used to rent. They only see that mortgage number as the only number because most people are living month to month. So the only number that matters to them is the month to month. But just repeat what you just said. When you're paying $100,000 more for a house, you're paying more in interest.
Yeah. And it's just, you number one, you're paying an extra $100,000 for the house. That's $100,000 out of your net worth that you're paying, like, to get to that house, right?
Yeah.
But if you save $200 a month, right, on that, and that's times 12, that's $2,400 a year that you might save on your mortgage payment, but you paid $100,000 more to get the house. You know how long it would take to recover that $100,000? It would take almost 50 years.
50 years. Think about this, okay? So let's just use the calculations that we ran. So we took houses in Summerlin, again, the most prestigious area in Vegas, and we did a 3% rate drop, right? And we showed that it saved you about $67 a month at the cost of $100,000 extra. And what I try to show people is that the interest that you're paying on just that $100,000 is more than $67 a month, right? So you see the $67 savings on the front end. What you don't see on the back end is an extra $140 in interest that you're paying because the house went up, right? And people need to understand that sub 5% rates are not good for normal buyers. The problem is all the information that gets fed to what I consider the normal or average person is based on rich people's preferences. Rich people love when the interest rate goes down because that means they can borrow money for cheap and they have the capital to outspend other people, right?
Yeah.
And they've somehow convinced the average person wants to be rich so badly that they've deluded themselves into thinking that they actually are. And that if they just behave like rich people, that they'll be rich too. And as we saw in 2021, rich people will just spend $50,000 over the list price. You can delude yourself into thinking you're rich until somebody offers $50,000 over the list price and you realize, oh, wait, that's right, I'm poor still, right? So a big thing we want to do here, Bill, and that's a huge part of this episode, is just using numbers, data, and knowledge to show the average person to help pull them from that delusion. Stop pretending that you're something you're not. The interest rates are not good for like 90% of you, and you need to be okay with that, and you need to accept that, and you need to understand that sub 5% rates aren't going to save you from any bad decisions.
No, the sub 5 rates will allow you to potentially get a lower mortgage payment, but you're going to pay more for the home.
Yeah. So if sub 5 rates are bad for the average person, what's this secret weapon? What is this secret weapon that the middle class, that the average person has to compete with this mortgage interest rate market?
The secret weapon is refinance.
Oh, we hear that word all the time.
What does refinance mean?
We hear that word all the time.
Really? What it means is you're basically, when you go in to buy a home today, let's say, for example, the interest rate is 6.5%. And let's say a year and a half, 2 years from now, the rates go to 5%. You basically replace your mortgage interest rate today of 6.5 with a new mortgage interest rate at 5.5 or 5.5%. So you're lowering the interest rate, but guess what? You're not paying more for the house because you already bought the house
Already bought the house.
a year and a half, 2 years ago.
100%.
And you're just lowering the interest rate. You're replacing the higher interest rate with a lower interest rate.
Yep. Let's say and here's a perfect example. I have clients in 2023, 2024 who bought closer to 6.97% FHA, right? But because of that, we got the house $40,000 cheaper than it is now. We also got all their closing costs paid. We got all the repairs done, right? So they got a pretty good deal on the house outside of the mortgage rates, right? So they've waited 2 years with a higher mortgage. And now you just told me before we started filming, you got somebody at 5.35 FHA.
5.75.
5.75. 5.75.
6.75 when they purchased the home. I'm doing one actually today that they were at 7.25 on their loan. We're bringing them down to actually 6.25 on their loan, but paying all their closing costs so that they save money immediately.
Yeah.
Could we get them lower than 6.25? Yes, but I also believe that they're going to be set up to save money immediately, and then they will have another opportunity as these rates, in my opinion, will go down, that they can do it again and save more money. And the payback period, they've already paid it. They're saving money immediately.
And they already got the house.
Yes, they have the house.
That's the big thing, right?
And their house is now $40,000 more when they bought it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And that's the thing, that time, obviously refinancing is the weapon, but time is the greatest tool that we have, right? What's the old phrase? You can't, it's timing the market, it's time on the market.
Correct.
Right? Bill especially studies rates, inflation, mortgage interest rates more than anybody I know. But even he doesn't have a crystal ball to say on this exact date, rates will go down and you can refinance, right? But to the people who bought their houses 2 years ago, guess what? Bill will tell you're waiting for the rate to be 1% lower. And for a lot of people who bought a few years ago, the rate is currently 1% lower. And Bill's able to get you guys a cheaper house. And now you have the best of both worlds. You got your house cheaper, now your rate's cheaper, and you're winning. All you had to do was suck it up for 1 to 2 years, right? And I know 1 to 2 years seems like forever in this modern world where we want instant gratification. But in the long run, 1 to 2 years of sucking it up with a mortgage to get a cheaper house and a cheaper mortgage is how you win. Yeah. It's how you win.
And Brandon, with the interest rates that are perceived to be elevated, correct? Did property values go up or did they go down?
Up, 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 up.
They're still positive, right? They're still making, it may not be, which I appreciate, they're not going skyrocketing now because of the interest rates, but man, they still went up.
Well, I can actually give you the exact number because I might not be as smart as Bill, but I do a little bit of research.
You're pretty smart there, Brandon.
In 2024, in what was considered the highest interest rates in a decade, Las Vegas went up 6.6% in value, which is about 1.6% higher than the national average, right?
So can we take an example of that? So if you bought a $400,000 house.
What if I told you I drew up an example in advance?
Tell me the example.
Are you ready for this?
Give them the dollars.
I even threw a refi in here for you.
Okay, good.
So let's say you have a $400,000 house at 7% interest rate, right?
Very typical.
Okay. And then you did a 5% refinance, right? It would drop your payments about $500 a month. You would have saved $500 a month over the next 25 years is $154,000. Meanwhile, if you had waited for 5% rates, that same house would have cost you $100,000 to $150,000 more, meaning more interest payments. So you would have ultimately paid hundreds of thousands of dollars more
plus thousands
for the same house, right? These are big, scary numbers, but this is real, Bill. These are the real numbers right here. Refinancing is one of the greatest weapons that people have that they don't even know how to engage with it, right? Yeah. So Bill, how do I know it's time to call you for a refinance?
That's a great question. And I get to ask that all the time. When do I know it's time? So there's two components to a refinance. Number one is the savings that you'll get by getting a lower mortgage rate. The second one is the cost of the refinance. And this is the second one is the one that a lot of mortgage people don't really like to talk about because they say, oh, I can get you a low 5%. And they go, great, I'm going to save this much money and this much money. But it costs an arm and a leg. It doesn't make sense to pay all these points and fees and all that. What I look at is really, I'm going to take a simple example. And let's say you had a $400,000 home value, okay? $400,000 loan. And you saved 1% on that. 1% times 400,000 is $4,000 a year. Just simple math. You're going to save around $4,000 per year by lowering your interest rate by 1%. If the cost of that refinance is $2,000, which is probably, just title fees and recording fees and that kind of stuff.
The middleman stuff.
The middleman. It's going to take you 6 months or half a year to pay it back, right? So you're going to save money after 6 months. Now, if you charge points and fees and to get this real low rate, what ends up happening is the payback period, it may now cost $400,000. It may cost you $6,000, right? And now you're talking, well more than a year, and even more than that.
And the average person only stays in their house for 5 to 7, 5 to 8 years.
Yeah, and unfortunately, some people, because they don't do mortgages every day, we do. They just see the rate. They just see the low rate, and it's 1.5% lower, and they see their payment being a lot lower, but they don't consider the costs. And if you look at trying to do the payback, I look at it, if you can pay back your closing costs within a year, in my opinion, that's the best program to go on.
Yeah.
So even if it means a little bit higher interest rate, you're saving money quickly, and then you're going to go ahead and have the opportunity to potentially lower your mortgage rate again.
Yes, 100%. 100%. And this is valuable information that we talk about this all the time, that people just aren't getting. They're just, where are you supposed to get the information that you just gave people? They don't teach it in high school. They didn't teach it in my first year of college math. There was no class of like how to buy a house 101, right? So unless you listen to this podcast or unless your parents are educated in the world of real estate finance, you're never going to hear this stuff. And it's important. I know it's not as sexy as our nightclub references. I know it's not as sexy as luxury housing. I know, right? But sexy doesn't, well, I'm in Vegas in mind, but sexy doesn't put you into houses. What puts you in the houses is knowing your numbers, knowing when to refinance, knowing when to jump in, knowing when to take that gamble, knowing when to take that risk, knowing your numbers, knowing what the refinance is going to cost and how long it's going to take to pay it back. This is what gets people in houses. This is what saves people money. Willing to dedicate 1 to 2 years to a slightly higher mortgage to get a cheaper house in the long run.
Time in the market.
Time in the market. So Bill, what we're going to do here to finish off the show is we're going to create a strategy for our audience, a strategy. If you're what we consider the normal home buyer, which means you and your partner aren't both 6-figure earners, right? If you and your partner both make 6 figures, listen, you probably have enough money to overcome either side of high or low interest rates. Mm-hmm. You have enough money to pay over the list price, or you have enough money to wait it out. Right? What we're trying to talk about is to the average buyer who's afraid right now, who's scared. We're going to create a strategy for you, okay? The first thing is don't root for sub-5 interest rates and don't wait for them. You're asking for a buyer's market. I give this example all the time, Bill. It's like going to a nightclub with your buddies and waiting for 1,000 guys to show up before you start talking to girls. What are you doing? You're just lowering your odds, right? Mm-hmm. I don't care how cute you are. I don't care how nice your haircut is. You're still lowering your odds, right? So if they're not going to wait for sub-5 interest rates, what do they do?
If they're not going to, they need to go in right now and they can negotiate seller paid closing costs to either get an interest rate, mortgage rate buy down to get the mortgage payment lower, or they can have the seller pay their closing costs. So we've called it free money. And as these rates continue to go down, that free money goes away.
Goes away.
And we're starting to see that. I mean, there's sellers still out there that are willing to give this money. And we're also coming into this slower time of year
100%.
in general.
100%.
The last quarter of the year is always just a little bit slower because you got Halloween, you've got Thanksgiving, you've got Christmas, you've got New Year's, and everybody just is like, oh, I'm going to enjoy the holidays. And that's what ends up happening.
Bill, you ripped the words literally from my brain. If you guys want to know, Bill gave you a secret on the lending side, which is refinancing. It really is a secret weapon. On the real estate side, our secret weapon is holidays. From October 25th to February,
Super Bowl. I'm going to call it Super Bowl.
Let's call it Super Bowl. So post Super Bowl, there is a stretch of 4 months, October, November, December, January, early February, 4.5 months, where the average person doesn't think about real estate one time. You do the Halloween, you got to get your kids costumes. If you don't have kids, you got to find your cute kitty Halloween costume, and you want to find the perfect bar and the perfect this, and you want to do this. Okay. Halloween gets over, your hangover goes away. Thanksgiving's coming around the corner. Am I doing a Friendsgiving? Am I doing Thanksgiving at my house? Am I cooking the turkey? Do I not have to cook a turkey? As soon as Thanksgiving ends, oh God, Black Friday, Christmas shopping. Oh, I gotta get gifts. My kids need stuff. They need stuff. I gotta buy stuff. I need stuff. Black Friday, buy stuff. I bought a bunch of stuff. Oh, New Year's is here. Got to make my New Year's resolution to quit buying so much stuff, right? Got to worry about going back to the gym. Got to get things going. And then February, Super Bowl happens, right? And everybody's just thinking about their Super Bowl party and all their bets and all that stuff, right? So you have a stretch over the next 4.5 months
100%.
where you're going to be the only person in your friend group or in your universe thinking about real estate. And this is when prices go down. And this is when negotiations happen. Bill, my tip for them is be boring. Do you know what 6% interest rate is, or mortgage interest rate is, Bill? It's boring.
It's boring.
It's boring. It's not high enough that sellers are panicking and giving their houses away, and it's not low enough where everybody's rushing out to buy houses. It's boring and it's average, and it's the perfect number for most people. You want boring, right?
You do.
If I'm going to a bar or a club to hang out with my friends and I'm trying to meet a nice lady, I want boring. I don't want people hanging from the rafters. I don't want 10,000 people spilling drinks everywhere. I want boring, so I have time to talk, so I have time to listen and engage, right? And real estate's the same way. I want boring. I don't want chaos. Take advantage of boring.
Yeah. 100%. It's a great time right now. And I think what's going to end up happening is you have the average first-time home buyer, 38 years old. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's old. I mean, look at you. You're not even 38 and you got gray in your hair, your beard.
Man, I'm
getting
black.
gray.
So I was born like 27. So I'm in my 60s technically.
So at 38, they want a house, right? And it's been 4 years of home sales that are super low, like 1 million homes below the average.
Yep.
What is going to happen if the rates do drop just a little bit and it thaws the people that are feeling stuck or they just have to get out of their house? Do you think 2020, and we're coming into that slow time of year, what do you think is going to happen in 2026? Rates drop, people are ready to get out there.
Yep.
There's this pent up demand that's going to come into play.
Yep. I
think 2026 could be a breakout year.
Oh, we're going to have a huge prediction episode next because we're going to talk about the equity people have, but you're right. You're right. And the problem is right now, the average person is, again, let's just start the dad rant. The average person behaves like a sheep, like the zebra who wants the same grass as all the other zebra, right? And they live in this matrix where they're waiting for interest rates to be low and prices to be low. And inevitably,
does it happen?
This is the truth, Bill. The average person pays the price for being a sheep because you know what they get? they usually get high prices and bad interest rates. They usually get neither. By waiting for both things, they usually get neither. They rush out when the interest rate goes down and they buy with everybody else, and they get the worst deals possible, and they get no closing costs. They get no repairs on their house. They start doing no appraisals. They start doing no inspections. You know what happens when the prices go down.
Oh, yeah.
And then they turn around and have to spend all that money they saved on fixing their busted house that they bought without an inspection.
Or closing costs.
Or closing
like
costs.
$10,000 to $15,000 extra for closing costs.
And then they complain that houses are overpriced. No matter what the average person does, if they're not following our strategies and they're waiting on low interest rates, they're purposely buying the most overpriced houses possible. And they're always going to be trapped there. They're never going to escape that. They're not your friend, guys. And I mean that both for the mortgage interest rates and the people selling you the idea. These people are not your friends. Anybody who's telling the average person to wait for low interest rates is not your friend. They're trying to take advantage of you, or they're dumb. They're dumber than you, and they're trying to pretend like they're not. But either way, they're not your friend. Lower interest rates are the rich man's jackpot. And you're out here playing Keno, just hoping something lands on your numbers, hoping to get lucky. It does not work that way. The true cheat code, the true secret weapon is refinancing. It is a reward for being patient. It is a reward for taking your time, and it is a reward for taking a risk.
Delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification. It's no different than me not going to eat tacos right now and instead eating some salads. Will it suck? Sure. But a year from now, I'll feel great, right? Bill, how easy is it for them to call you and just start the conversation about refinancing?
It is super simple. BillGaylord.com. Schedule a time to jump on a Zoom and figure out what your numbers are so that you can feel confident going out and buying. And I'm going to say also, Brandon, that a lot of people go, gosh, well, I don't want to have this big obligation if something happens to me. You have more options when you own a home than when you are a renter. When you are a renter, if you miss your payment rent, guess what? They throw you out of the house, right? When you own a home, you can rent that house out. You can get a roommate to help you with the rent. You can also potentially sell the house and get the money back that you put into the house. And then you have the ability too, with some of the mortgage programs, for if you do get into trouble, they have the ability to potentially extend the term of their loan. And it's just you have way more options as a homeowner if you get into trouble.
Yep, 100%. Bill, thank you for doing this. Much like the 6% rates, this may not be the sexiest thing to listen to, but this is what puts people...
I think I'm sexy. It's my hair.
You're a zaddy is what they would call you. That's what they call you. But this is what puts people in homes. It really is. The boring day-to-day discipline stuff, this is what puts people in homes, right? I did not get into a house, the first person in my family, by doing the sexy stuff. People think, oh, social media. Social media did not pay for my home. Saving money, being disciplined, delaying gratification, that's what got me there.
Was it easy?
No, it sucked. It sucked. And it sucks. It sucks going from rent to mortgage. It sucks. We'll do a whole episode on this. It sucks. But you know what's great now? No matter how crappy my day is, no matter how long and exhausting and tiring my days are, at the end of it, I'm my own master. I go home to my own property. I can kick off my shoes. No one can kick me out of that house. No one can tell me to leave. I can lower my mortgage by refinancing with you.
Paint the walls.
I can do whatever the hell I want to. It's mine. It's mine. I own it. Hell, I can pee outside if I want to. It's my damn house, right? No, a podcast there, Austin. There is no... Guys, if you want to look into refinancing, if you want to, contact Bill. His information's in the description box below. Bill, what's the best way to reach you if they're not going to use the description box below?
Just go to billgaylord.com. Very simple. It has all my information there.
Yes. And if you want to contact me because you feel more comfortable talking to me, that's fine. You can fill out the real estate form. It's in my bio on all social medias. It's in the description box on the YouTube. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to learn your name. And then I'm going to say, you need to call Bill. Right? Because that's the truth. Most of you just need to talk to Bill, but I understand if you want to use me as a conduit first. All right. Bill, thank you for being here. Thank you for educating the people. They really do need it, whether they are resistant to it or not. So thank you for being here. And as always, guys, come and be my neighbor. Peace, 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 peace. Peace, Austin loves when I do this thing.